Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Guru Be Namo May I remind all of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate bodhicitta motivation, or the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this Lamrim teaching on the stage of the path to enlightenment that brings together all the essential points of practice.
senji 가서 담배 추지 참지 알아봐다 참게 아다 참디 아니가도 화공 전부 깝기 때문에 마 용세다 가자라 돈덤기 제발 잘 맞아게 제 마트어 저기 진에 마신다 다다디 이 마이 들어봐다 가자 근데 어다 있네 마면도 도나 가자라 돈덤기 캬버 잡아 땜면도 나 돈 담반 되다 아닌 디라스 돈덤님 되던디 너 시베 담반 아 되니지 남이 자르메 송외 신의 송도와 다 디가르송기요 알았잖아 공도 해배 또 제대 만돌 뒤비이나 아니 마돌 뒤지 마 해기이나 아니 다 가자라 돈담 껴버란주 코네 로긴 세야데 양 그다 잘라 돈담 자고요 말이 세야도 계좌만 부시네 다 간지 가자라 돈담기 껴버 잡아 아니 비게지 때니 면도 나나 아니 다 가르치는 가르치는 지대 감래 디 군도 담바를 다시 하나 봐 대단히 추 강식으로 봐 대단히 군도 동담배 담바를 안 대단히 애니 비비 군도 담바를 예전에 지 단위도 셔야게 애니 비게지 남당다 볼때 다지 떨어간다 보지 차기도 전에 어디 쓴 거야 살아봐
So we are back to volume number 3 in the English translation of Great Lamrim Chemo, Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, and we are on page 219 towards the bottom. Just to refresh our mind with some of the major points that we have been dealing for a while. We, of course, are in the Lamrim section on cultivating special insight or penetrative insight, vipassana, into the ultimate nature of things. We call Lakdong Chemo. So pertaining to that, we have a number of points to deal with, and one of which is identifying objects of negation or identifying what is negated or refuted. And so we have talked about this quite for some time, and one of the issues that we have really dealt with is the use of qualifying term ultimate, Döndam in Tibetan, to objects of negation. And there are cases where in the Buddhist literatures on the subject where the qualifying term ultimate is explicitly used as in ultimate existence, but there are many occasions where the term ultimate is dropped, but is implicitly understood that it has to be there. Yeah? And different schools of thought have maybe take a different take on this. For example, one of the critics said that the use of qualifying term ultimate with regard to objects of negation is the exclusive domain of the Sevatandika Madhyamikins. That's what they do, as if others don't do it. But as we have seen, it's not only Sevatandika Madhyamikins, one of the sub-schools of middle way, but Prasangika Madhyamikas such as Chandakiti also do the same thing. So we have kind of addressed that issue about thing. The reason why we really need to tackle that, the use of the qualifying term, whether explicitly, implicitly, is if we dismiss that, then it would rather be hard for us to talk about two truths, okay? Pramartha Satya, ultimate reality or truth, and Samvriti Satya, the conventional reality or the conventional truth. Yeah, how do we differentiate between the two truths, and if we don't have a sense of the term ultimate, what does ultimate mean? When it's used explicitly, when it is not used explicitly. Yeah, things like that. No.
Ati karisigi na tiktaku hirari hiadirima tahata ko yago shimidu di imba ina tachi gajala tondum ge chebra mindobe yena tembani ki namjade chik paji torwa dawo ji chag de siadi kandi sungu yena 제 돈 담버트베 돈 담버 마두베 근데 진바 이나니 가잘 돈덤 쳬브라자 마셰비 인바 이나니 티 가잘 돈덤 쳬브라 자와 티티 그러와 가자티 마두바티 가자마티 마두바데 아니 그게 돈 담바 똥바니기 남이었다 아니 티바 그게 제 강내야 추진 군도 바데 때네 매바 마임바 탄이도 유베게 군접담바 텐데게 남이때 떠른도근도 쳔네 송그만도선 식세 챤야다 템바니 남샤 생인티 다 조직 자리였다 단다 룽디 셰비나야다 룩탐지 드니마 데가 난도 난괴 주다마와 시부 탐지기 룩간디 진비나야 아니 데가라디 시tem반이 남탑지 님제부꾼이 그 남자한테 맞다 드니마 때는 파비용거야리 팔룩때 되면 자와리 바나 남베 주다마와 시어리 시나리 사샤비 얘네야 제 저라마바다 때반이 그 남자 안 좋은 조고야리 얘네야 안 좋던 가가 조고야리 대대 대신게 도대바이네 때반이 남자 요요리 가리 다간난 시대에 심산비 룩제비네야 담반네 신남샤 강진 요요 다가리 다 단주을로네 마이지 다 담반니 신남샤 되야 제네 시담반니 신남샤 시디마 가르쳐다 좋은 거지 희때는 밥잔 거지 내 채용 거리 어디게 아니 된대게 남이한테 매번 시도 신의 송구요 사레스.
So what is stated towards the end of page 219 is this, that if we were to dismiss this whole idea of the qualifying term ultimate, then it would rather be very difficult to talk about two truths and to differentiate between the two truths. Okay. So when we say that, of course, from Prasangika mathematical point of view, that's taken for granted here, that objects of negation do not exist and should not exist. So what does that mean? In order to understand that, we have to understand this whole notion or the idea of what is we call ultimate existence. The Tibetan term is Tenzin, ultimate existence. Yeah. So if we have no idea of what ultimate means, then there's really no way to understand when we talk about something doesn't exist in certain way, then we really are clueless about it. So therefore, we really cannot talk about ultimate truth and conventional truth. Okay. The whole idea about the true truth is central to Buddhist philosophical schools of thought. As you know, that in Buddhism, we at least talk about 4 major schools of thoughts or tenets we call drupta. Yeah. And in each school, there is a presentation of the true truth. Yes, they are very different from one another. They may debate about that. But nonetheless, each school attempts to present their versions of the true truths. Vaibhasikas, the lowest Buddhist school of tenet in terms of the ranking, have their own way of describing what the true truths are, what is ultimate truth and what is conventional truth. And so do the Sautantikas above them. They have their presentations of true truths. And so do the Chitta-Martins on the mind-only school. And of course the Madhyamikans, and within that the Prasangika Madhyavikas have their version. Okay? So this, understanding the true truths and presentation is central to all the Buddhist schools of thought. And if we dismiss this whole idea about the ultimate, the term, then it would be really difficult for us to talk about the true truths. What is ultimate truth and what is conventional truth? So we would find it rather difficult to do that. No. And so the one thing that, okay, I should be looking on the other side of the page, is in Buddhism, as many of you know, there are these 3 things which we really study. What exists at the level of the basis, shi, okay, foundation. So at the level of the basis, every Buddhist school of thought presents the two truths, ultimate truth, conventional truth. Okay? And based upon that, at the level of the path, they talk about how do we integrate method and wisdom together, ubaya and jnana together. Right? Based upon the realities, then they present certain method and wisdom. They must be brought together. And then at the level of the result, so then the big question is, okay, so now you present the truths at the level of the basis, you present the method and wisdom at the level of the, so what? So what's the big deal now? Well, the big deal is, what do we get? The end results, right? Outcomes. So this is where we talk about the enlightened bodies, And so that is really very important, what we study in Buddhism about the true truth at the level of the basis, method and wisdom at the level of the path, and the enlightened bodies, at least 2 we categorize at the level of the result. Okay? And also in that context, understanding this whole issue about the use of qualifying term ultimate or not, explicit, implicitly, is very important. And this is what we are really talking about, that all that conventional phenomena that we experience in everyday life, primarily, they do exist. Okay? So we cannot deny, that which exists conventionally. Okay? Because then that becomes we become a nihilist, isn't it? But at the same time, we also need to figure out if they do exist, how do they really exist? In terms of the ultimate nature, if you will. So therefore, we really need to be able to differentiate between the ultimate mode of existence of things and the conventional mode of existence of things, if you will. And those two realities must not contradict each other. It's not like our presentation of the true truths will undermine the other truth. Okay, then that will be a problem.
다디 디제. 다디 가성도는 된다베 안에 된다베 오마파니 간에 좀 마시베 로퍼도 뭐 코나고 송야다. 다디 스도 가르치어서는 이게 공그 단다지 가자라 돈덤기 켜버 째니 민두베게 된다베 오마바지 유지 말에 삼삼치 배제 유지 말에 개디킨데지 유베 온도 땅비나야 다티체 자외 까다 도주 텐주 공대 강내에 마셰베 아니 비게지 오마바게 인사레티 텐데지 마셰베 아니 그다 로도 코나 인겐게 텐데게 로도 코나 줄에 대땡게 텐데게 오마바지 레샤 송게 사레스.
So towards the bottom page 219 where it reads, there is no such explanation of such a madhyamika anywhere, so it is simply a wrong idea. In other words, that there cannot be madhyamikans or middle way philosophers who do not accept the difference between the two truths and so who don't, do not deal with this qualifying term ultimate or Tembardruba in Tibetan. Okay, so what we're saying is that madhyamikans, they assert that conventionality phenomena exist, they function, but ultimately nothing exists. So we have to be able to differentiate between those two things. Ultimately nothing exists, but conventionally things do exist. Okay? And Madhyamikan philosophers should be able to assert those two things and differentiate between those two realities.
신도세라 아시아지 송도아 다티 가르송기요나 다티 대지를 하시라 고부치 민두디 얘네야 다지 땅거 바벌류기 아니 비게지 오마타와시라 갑술라 아니 달레 마이 셀레메 닐레 마이 주메멘 뭐보 간단메 짜와나야 요 마이 셀레 집에 값도 다시 짜와 가스 그러봐 될라 다시 짜와 가리 이 값줄라 아니 직시 엄만 주게 등이 될래 주면 견달에다 갈라지 내가 내가 많이 주매 반에 갈라 유세하게 드네 마 다시 짜와 가당 마 림바도 직지 안나 다 근데게 다시 짜와 가게 아니 정말 다지신인데 까윤도 봐라 아니 비케지 가자라 돈덤기 켜버잖아 까버리 세야지 송기와 만들어상기다 현긴 되바지라 현다 저기 다지가비 오데 아니 비게지 까윤도 봐라 아니 가자라 돈덤기 켜버잖아 까버리 세야지 송기에서 따라붙이 통인 그도가 디네지가 송겐지 요바지 때 말이스 가자라 돈덤기 켜버잖아 값술라 아니 비게 말이 다정고 값라 가자라 돈덤기 켜버잖아 아니 해요 말이스 해요 말이스 때 멤버티 가르잖아 식세치 값을 가자라 다정고 발라 가자라 돈덤기 켜버잖아 말이스네 까신도 스텐티 승부에서 말도 다이나 대인다 가르쳐기는 지게 식세를 가자라 돈덤기 켜버죠 깍바니세도 가자라 돈덤 켜버죠 깍바레세야 돈 켜버데 디 식세제 가서 까게 되스 다정고발 땀 인치스 어야 다정고고 깝라 아니 피게지 고버 깝라 가자라 돈덤기 켜을 달 켜와 요 마리스네 까버tâm 게 마도 가자라 돈덤기 켜버자요 마리스 샴테서 가데 켜와 땀스도 다제 매바 켜와 땀 고발라 아니 켜와 땀 라니 디 가서 가자라 돈덤 켜버자네 까요 마리스 디 매바tin 대반에 신도세 샤시안지 뭐 텐데 지송 만들었음 지켜야지 레샤
So Khensur has given explanation on the last paragraph on page 219, where it reads, Chandrakirti's clear words refutes the addition of the qualification ultimately to the negation in the context of refuting production from self, not in the context of refuting mere production and so on. Now, it's very technical, as Khensur said, he's doing his best to explain it to the level of his understanding, but this is the kind of a, matters which is very rather difficult, to decode the meaning. And the explanation given here is, as he has beautifully quoted the stanzas from his memory, which I can do in English, so that's that. He quoted a stanza, very fundamental stanza from Arya Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom treatise called Mulya Madhyamika, where basically the stanza deals with refutation of 4 extreme modes of production. Okay, okay, 4 extreme modes of production are refuted. Yeah, and he beautifully quoted the stanza, and then also parallel stanza by Chandrakirti from his supplement to the middle way or Madhyamik Avatar. Okay? So basically, what we are talking about in those stanzas is that there is, neither is there production from self, okay, nor is there production from others, 2, nor production from both, 3, and nor production without causes and conditions. Are you with me? So those are the 4 extreme modes of production which are refuted. Okay? So in that context, so when they say there is no production from self, there is no production, what kind of production are we talking about? Again, this technical qualifying term, ultimate comes into the play. Okay? And so so maybe some critics may have understood that, oh, look at that. You say nothing could be produced. Just look at that. So nothing could be produced from self, from others, from both and without causes. So that means it doesn't exist at all. So that's the wrong understanding, decoding the message here. Okay? So the explanation given there is this, that the refutation of production is not a production in general, but in a particular sense. That is, things are not ultimately produced on their own from themselves, nor are they produced ultimately from others. So that's the understanding. So the qualifying term ultimate has a instrumental role to play to understand that kind of a message. Okay, so that's the explanation Khensur has given here. Yeah. No.
Oya, tikka ko yimba ti en ta tan ta tikse ki chik song song a. O titam du mase bi chi ki ani jungde le cha ka gi du sung go yasare. Kajal tajeng go pala kajala ton tam ki chebra cha ba te en jungbe de bale cha ka gi du. Kandi ka gi de na lobon chi se ate yimba ta mendo sam. Lobon chi chebra manze paras dali chebra se ate ka gi du lobon lo do nda bu chi sha sha bi ne ya. Tondam ki chebra manze ba kare se na dali mai si chiri chewa ka ba ino dali mai se ne men se ne kajala tondam ki chebra ma cha ba dali mai si se ne chiri chewa ka ba res de sung gu yesra ba chiri dali mai si chiri chewa ka ba ino che o ti kare ya.
And so we also have a passage quoted from Chandrakirti's explanation of the middle way commentary, and the real passage is on page 220, right on the top. Yeah. And so where there's again mention of production from self, and so when it is claimed that a thing cannot produce itself, or thing is not produced from itself, what does that mean? Is we need to understand that ultimately, things cannot produce on their own or from itself. So we have to again, understand the role of the qualifying term ultimate there. Although some people said that, well, there is no use of the ultimate, term, the qualifying term ultimate, So we should simply understand, right, in a general sense, the things are not produced from themselves, they are not produced from others, right? They said, well, where is the use of the ultimate term? There's nothing. So let's say in general, right, things are not produced from themselves or from others. So that's, people have different interpretations of what it is here.
kanshi ngobo namni thong thambar tali jawa mayinte yuwe simba chen hino hi ane hi chebar tu cheba te thong thambar hi chabe chebar thong me to hi chabra sambar chawo songdo tadi kari songi yuna pechiri takora taji gobe kabla kajala thongdam ki chebar chagi re se atiki ane samdyun rabuji maa sung mendo kanchi ngobo nanne saraba chinangi ngobo nanne thong tamba tali chewa koreki joan rabuji gobi yina thong tambar tali chewa mayente yoari yubi chirra siya rabuji koi pen rabuji la karikari sana simba cheno ta simjen siya ta simjen sana pati ti nala yukiraba inji nala pati ndoyela also chena tan de simba chen se sa simjen ri sungo yusare ta simba chen no chele hi chebar tu cheba tinde chegi ani ti paru te gajal thondam ki chebar chagi re singi ki samjun rabo te thon thambra hi chebe chebar ani me do tinde ki korang ki look ki samju tam re mado cheki gajal thondam ki ton chebar thondam ki chebar chawa me do shi ani sambar chawo te ka so chahya samsam rab tinde sia yo mare ti sheba ti korang gi eni pige chi lug gi samju chi ma che re sene sung ge mando sange he sung ba ani tar hino se
konda ke zrum singe yakut komas ta del ya dan de sung gol ba gom aksa dan pande dawa taba gi tal maje se del ya ka tondam gi khabar janer wa tal maje di ha ko gres di sung gol
mare ta korang gajal tondam gi khabar tal mai se gajal tondam gi khabar janji he yong do wa
la
wo tik korang gi samdu mitik korang gi samdu chi ku gajal tondam gi khabar ja ya re chena ji ngomon chi chi tal mi chi de yube chere pena semba chen no sene ta kun do a si ti korang lu gi ta ko re ma do chi la gomblu tu gi tal mai chi ka so om ka inde ti ko yo ma re tinde sung ge sarwa ti ko yo ma korang sambar korang samdu ti par korang samdu ti korang gi lu kela ani thon thambar khabra jawa ti che khaltul ta chantin ro che yo ma re chantin ro ti chen me ba simbar chawo si a wo sung me do
da ranglu ya gabjala kasa ranglu thage go bala ani tonam gi khabar jago mare sung gor ba
wo chang mare sung ta jayo mare sung ta jaha sengeti ta samdu tong yo ta ta mandro sung re wa ta sabor he do ga chik chen chidang ta da lo ni he de gi ne ka ha ko mar da
okay. It's so difficult. That's why he said, I have to make sure that, I understood what Khensur just said. So let me see, because I have to look at the other one. Khensur, the Tama is the so bear with me. I think I want to make sure that I understand. The Tama delia, and that's 6 the number of Khensur. Delia says, and this is one Karsokore, and tanda tonam ki khabar jay gachal tonam ki khabar jayar thi isrwa di ane kasa tal maja ba gogda chedu tonam ki khabar jar mado chi gi chir ane kyawa me ba ane kyawa me chi
jayo maris
labro da
maris
hoti ranglu re di singlu de da
re
di ranglu ro da
hoti ranglu ro
di ranglu gi na ta tanda di karso di tanda shuma tanda soa de ro wa
hori
an gachal ya tonam ki khabar ranglu chabar da tonam ki khabar jagor slaw mar bane
gajal tontam ki khabar majawa de ka go de tikse le
ka na ne ranglu so so ka go mar
ye da ja hin dok se ya pa ka ne
ana
ka ba tal mai che be ka so gajal tontam ki khabar ja hin dok se ya de tikse da ju ben de bal pa ka gi do se ja yo maris
ale no a singos jayo mar ton ton yor se de be
ton yo yo me na de ja yo maris tikse da 중대니가 레까기도
no
디샤마티 가잘 톤덤 쳬브라 자완 동갱기 코랑 삼두 쳬브리 텔 찬딘티 쳬디 케시야요 마레시아지 됐다
Okay, let me redo this part. So we backtrack, taking on the page 219, where based upon Chandrakirti's clear words, where we refute the addition of qualifying term ultimate to the object of negation, right? And so the issue here is, according to some, the critics, they said that when the four extreme modes of production are refuted or negated, the qualifying term ultimate is used, okay, need to be used. Okay? But whereas Chandrakirti is saying, based upon Nagarjuna's work, well, there is no need to use the qualifying term ultimate, okay, to understand the four extreme modes of production. Are you with me? So now on next page 220, so where it reads, okay, so I'll read that relevant passage right on the top. There is someone who uses the qualification, things are not produced from self ultimately because of existing like a living being. The way Khensur Rinpoche has put that is, if we put in a syllogistic form, as the monks debate in the debate courtyards, we say that, wow, external and internal things, okay, these are the topic or the subject matter. And the predicate is, they are not ultimately produced from themselves. That's the predicate. Why? So according to those some people, they said, because they exist, just like sentient beings exist. Okay, so that is their presumption that the qualifying term ultimate need to be used, with regard to production from self, and their logic is that external and internal phenomena are ultimately produced from themselves because they exist, just like sentient beings. Okay? And Chandrakirti is taking an issue with that. They say, that's not what it is. As he says here, I think that the use of the qualification ultimately is senseless here. There is no need to use that. Okay.
Oh yeah. That my territory kept chimps. Tatine deals the Sundoya. Then Oma Ranju Bada, Oma Ranju Bada, Tenzin, Kajala, Tondam, Chabra Jolo, Major, Chekon, Minji Chang. What this here, Karasigiortana, Tawana Oma was in Telaya, Tanda to the Hichivi, Oma was here. Tea and Antilia, Oma Ranju, which in Chikta, and Oma Tenju was in Chikini to us. Tiniki Chaberti in it, Kagala Tondamki Chaber, Jorva, Oma Tenju, one of Chikta, Majorva, Oma Ranju, Tingo in Chikrebetana. Sigmaris and Sungoyaris.
So on page 220, as we know in the Buddhist school of thoughts or tenets, right at the kind of a higher level tenets, we talk about Madhyamigans or middle way schools of thought, Madhyamigans. And in the middle way school, at least we talk about two sub-schools. One is Savatandika Madhyamigans, and the other is Prasangika Madhyamigans. Okay? We cannot differentiate Savatandika Madhyamigans and Prasangika Madhyamigans from each other in terms of whether or not they use the qualifying term ultimate, with regard to the objects of negation. Okay? Because that has a criteria doesn't work. Okay? We cannot say that, well, Prasangikas are the ones who use the qualifying term ultimate, whereas Savatandika Madhyamigans are the ones who don't, So that does not differentiate them from, each other.
Oh, this is Meji Chance, that on Kajala Tondu, Chabakon, Meji Chance, and what? One of that Karigoni Chigri say at him, but Meji Chance, what? Karikoni Chigre, Oma Ranju within it, that Tenju within it, Kajatondum, Chabra, Machakon, Mishivase. That Karikoni Chigri, Saviana. That is something Mendoza and getting my sedante. Ranking more to the ranking tiny to go Mingochi. Ranking more to the ranking tiny to go Mingoki Chabra Uvesia. Dakpa Chashana, Maranju, Tabusana, Rangi, Ranshin Drube, Ranshin Drube, Ranshin Drube, and Pigati, Tani to Yori, Singetravata, Ranshin Drube, and Shanagi Chuna, Tani to Yori, Singetilla, Oma Ranju Tabuchikazi. Oma Tenyu Atana, Ranshin Drube, Tani to any Pigati, your Marie, Sene. Tawani the Ranchi Trubata, don't number to the Nage Chimpere, the Negi Tani de Ranchi Tribe, Tani to Pigate, Tani to your Marie, Sene, Tengete Omar, Tenyu Sene, Tunili Cabrati or Esungu Sare. KUBS.
So if Prasangika Madhyamigans and Savatandika Madhyamigans, cannot be differentiated on the basis of either the use of the use of the qualifying term ultimate or not, then how do we differentiate between these two philosophical standpoints, if you ask? The answer to that question is that we can do that in terms of, for example, Savatandika Madhyamigans. They assert that phenomena exist intrinsically, even conventionally. Okay? Savatandika Madhyamigans say that things exist from their own side, even conventionally. Okay? So they accept the intrinsic existence of things. Whereas Prasangika Madhyamigans oppose that. They said what? Things do not exist intrinsically, even conventionally. Okay? So that's a big difference between the two philosophical standpoints. As we can say, it's antithetical, isn't it? One says that things exist from their own side. The other saying that no, they don't exist from their side, even conventionally. So that's the big difference between the two sub-schools within middle way school.
What is that? Tonda to do in a ranking, ranking to Dribe, ranking on ranking to Dribe, tiny to your thing, the ranking which go get it, think you are, is it?
No.
Tene Dinima, Tisung Duati, ranking o to the ranking, Chenangi Chu Namala, Gokbana, Tenju is in the Sung Dua, Tenju Tana. Tenju Tana ranking o to the ranking go young to the Tamjin go to your Tontambanam, Yantava, Dambatuba, Hichabi, Kebrasato no Mikutes. Ranchi Dribe, Jawang go into Val, Gajet, Catin to Van Machia, Tokyo, Tontambasa, the temperature was the Antabras, or Tindegi, Tinjuity, to Ranchi to go tea, Yanjo tea ganleaja, Tontambrasea, the temperature was there, any pigate, no go your maris. Ranchi Madupna, the Chima, Gajene, Chimangabotea, Madui, Chapu, Chapinta, the Sadonoke, ranking Ranchi Madusana. Kaya shen tiki ti kan sadu no kaya yo mari tiki eni piki che te kata kodi masun shu du sungu yo zari sadu no miku te ta yu tenjab gobi na rangi ngo tewe rangi yu na ani tong tangpa so du gobi so ta ti tong tu yubi taka rangi ri rangi ngo tewe rangi chik yubi na tong tangpa duba sokje na la tangpa duba niya go chundu ani kiri dub go gri te Chiki drup chiki matu sayagi nech deyo mari drup gundu chen sungbayin saris.
So Savatandika Madhyamigans assert that phenomena even conventionally exist intrinsically, from their side. Prasangika Madhyamigans refute that. They said things do not exist intrinsically, even conventionally. Okay? And so according to Prasangikas, as we said that some time ago, that this the use of the terminologies, differently. According to Prasangikas, once we establish that there is no intrinsic existence, right? Nothing could exist intrinsically, then, it is the same as we can say that things don't exist truly. Things are not truly existent. Things are not ultimately existent. They all comes to the same thing. Once we have established that there is no intrinsic existence, then we don't have to go and prove that, well, there is no ultimate existence, there is no true existence, there is no objective existence. We don't have to do that. It all comes to the same thing. Okay? But once somebody asserts that things exist intrinsically, then they have to make an effort to prove that things do exist ultimately, things do exist truly, things do exist objectively. It is the burden of responsibility goes on them who says that things do exist intrinsically. Pasangika said, you know what? We don't have the burden of this logic because we said that nothing exists, from its own side. But whereas somebody who claims that things do exist from their side, then you have to bring your evidence and establish that things do exist ultimately, things are truly existent, and things are objectively existent. Okay, so that's the big debate between the two. No.
타디형들이 대승도와 란주부 따마승도와 란주부 따마 대다스도 천하고 뭐부 대다라스 천하게 뭐부 대다 돈 담바 속대 날 가래가 돈 담바를 담바를 줘봐 양 타버서 맞아봐 임바 얘네 대다 가 메뉴베 돈 담바가 양 타방함 담바시 자라봐 있노 딱까지네 족이나네 좀 란주부 따부되게 담바도바 돈다 양 타버를 줘봐대 자르데 자르고 요아리 라셰 줘봤으니때 피지 샤고 요아리 거라서 거랑 따와도 없지 대 샤고 그래 딱 간제 또도 해야 마셔나 란주비 줘반다고 제비나 아까제네 좀 잔 바까고 요아리 천왕이 뭐부터게 가제네 좀 되는 피게지 랑게 줘봐다 랑문에 줘봐 랑 튕이 줘봐 돈도 되게 대가랑 마샤비나 아니 피게지 때는 남샤 밑에부터 보지 차도도 전 어디 공부 승부여서래
알다가 내 숨켈레데 랑싱 줘봐 랑 튕이 줘봐네
랑문에 줘봐
랑문에 줘봐 다 디게 숨지 로
담버 줘봐 다 간제
그래서 갈래서 게 디치 다다 가제 투고나네 가서디 랑규베그 데디 랑싱 줘봐 랑은에 줘봐 랑 튕이 줘봐 디
어디
다 매라이디 쳐봐자고 데 전 담버 줘봐 메스
양 탁버베
담버 줘봐 메스 거베
담버 줘봐서 양 탁버 줘봐
노 담버 줘봐 양 탁버 요 마레스로와
말만 담버 줘봐 양 탁버 찍디 그래 가제 찍네 찍디
알노노노소 다마다 전다 도도 선도가려야 랑규베 로려야 안취담제 랑원의 두비스 전 담버 두메스 담버 두메스 telagora
양 탁버 두메스
담버 두메스 라 양 담버 쓰데 담버 두좀 몰래
어다다 간제 가제네 찍버리디나 라빵 양 탁버에 두비아요 말이세야지
전 담버레 두메스 전 담버 두메스
돈 담버 두메스 양 탁버 두메 담버 두메스 야지
no. Yeah, I have to make sure that the use of the terminologies they are consistent in those schools. According to Sevatandika Madhyamikans, we're still on the second paragraph, the big one on page 220. They differentiate between the use of these different terms. Okay, they assert that things are intrinsically existent. Okay, that's the assertion. And what goes with that is things exist by way of their own characteristics. Rangtsinyi Jiduba in Tibetan. Okay, things exist by way of their own characteristics. Rangtsinyi Jiduba. And things exist from their own side. Rangwena Juba. Yeah? So that is what they assert, Sevatandika Madhyamikans. But, they say, they got a but here, right? But they do not exist ultimately. Okay? They don't exist ultimately. Right? They don't exist ultimately. And so other than word, I think probably they translate the word called essentially. The Tibetan word is they don't exist perfectly. Yang tabar manduba. So are you with me? So Sevatandika Madhyamikans differentiate, in the use of those terms. They said things exist intrinsically by way of their own characteristics from their own side. But we say they do not exist ultimately. Okay? So they have a burden to say. So what does that mean now, right? They don't exist ultimately, and they don't exist perfectly. Yang dabar manduba. Whereas for the Pasangikas, they don't have that trouble. They say, what? Ultimate existence, true existence, intrinsic existence, existence by way of their characteristic, blah, 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 all of them mean the same thing. Yeah, once we establish there is no intrinsic existence, close the chapter. We're done. Are you with me? Okay. So that's the big debate between the two schools.
Oh, yeah, that's.
This is like a bone cracker thing, tough issues we're dealing with.
어쨌든 아니 뒤트기였다. 엄마 란주부 뒤 대가랑이 있지. 다들 휴탈지라와. 원장 쓰단들이 막 사비나 대승도와 원장 껴와당 징주라서 봐 통탐방 랑경 오토바 소지 체버 가야 맞아와 가 뉴반네 엄마반님게 민두도 다 지난지 초남 디제디 이니피게지 란주베 따나 이니피게지 가제니 숨티지 텐주와 따나 가제니 통답이지 텐제 가야 저기 가르쳐 버렸다 오다 껴와 있는다 각바 있는다 마 코바나를 찡땡기기다 쟁아라도 코아버 심전도 마 찡되어봐 찡되어봐 야 디네야 지 코알이야 그 상경기 강사 망고 지어들어봤다 강사 망고 냐란 따좀발다 자교바냐 티쟁 튼도야 디네야 코알이야 그 상경 망고 뒤에 쓰기 있어라다 줘발라 줘봐 쏘라 통탐방 암 자기 나이 자바 있나인다 랑게 뭐 줘봐 쏘다디나 속제디나 망고시도와 근데지 자라와 아니 근데지 자라 가야 근데지 쳬버 가야 맞아봐라 아니 디제디 자와메 각바메 렌테기 피기 코아 찡바야 메 코알레 줘봐야 메 시야게 디제지 지당게 가제네 가야 맞아봐 디데 메시네 야버테 엄마 텐주웬도 말이 엄마 란주밖에 싸와니는도 그 말이 있잖아. 군이 토모도 아니 비게지. 가제네 맞아베기 아니던데 매매세야 돼. 가라니 토모도 누구 말이 있어야지 순고했어요.
알아다 가제네 맞아와라디 용마세 토모도 저비네 이네 가제네 자야게 네디 양 카가차데로와. 근데 엄마 가사디 엄마 텐주바이나 랑고네 모르세.
말에 근데 딱 가자 엄마 태주었다 가제니 톡제라와
알라로라레
란주었다 가제니 숨체
나나
다 친한 경우보다 렌데요 말이 코와 찡부요 말이 코와 두부요 말이 아니 비데지네 껴와요 말이 낙바요 말지 가제니 두복 가야 로와 지금 맞아로 봐라 아니 티켓이요 말이 제네 매버지 땜베지야디 엄마 태주엔 두고 말이 란주베야 두고 말이 있어야지 좀
Okay, so towards the end of the second paragraph from page 220, where it reads, first I'll read it and then translate the explanation given. However, neither Madhyamika system asserts that you can refute conventionally existent things such as production, cessation, bondage, release, and so forth, without adding some qualification such as ultimately or essentially. Yeah. So the explanation given on this is neither do the Prasangika Madhyamikans nor do the Savatantaka Madhyamikans, they could refute what exists conventionally. Things such as we just talked about, birth, production and cessation. Things are produced, things cease to exist. Or bondage and release, that we are bound in samsara, isn't it? And the release meaning liberation, those who are free of samsara, such as the arahats, right? Yeah. So these things conventionally exist, so they are not going to refute what exists conventionally. And when they talk about objects of negation, right, they do use certain qualifying terms. In the case of what called Prasangika Madhyamikans, the qualifying term is, what called intrinsic existence or the essential existence, right? In the case of the Savatantaka Madhyamikans, they use the term ultimate, right? Nothing exists ultimately. Things exist intrinsically, but not ultimately. That's how they have to use the qualifying term. Okay.
Oh yeah. That here Tiniba Nyokdalongi Mangbo Chintito Tarcherawa. Yanti Karsung San, Dishamti Karsung Tisungdoa. One Jan or that it ban Rotarava, Rotarava, Omawa Nike Mindu Doche. One of Tom Tamba maybe Tom Kain Yamnas. That you want of Chikula, Yaja Tom Tambari your Mari, Jumper to buy your Mari, Sianda, Yankab Tom Tamba in Pigate, yes, Sianda Tindegi. nyokta chi mangbo shi dog sirwa. Yudu bala tong tambar mebe tongde kari yin siya tiwash gobi ina sungu yosare. Ayi nyamna ta tiwan rabu je tong tambar mebe tong xio siya tiwash li songna. Ta tilin di sungu yin sungu yosare mendo. Tela tong siya chi tiwash. Chidangi nipige je tong siya di kari li labgi yawar siya na. Xiedu chigli ya tong siya di kari siya na. Xieja chigiri siya. Tongni xieja xiebar chawo siya ndo. Xieja la tong sigiri siya. Tong dang to dang zhoba na siya ki tat nima tong siya di xieja la sigiri siya. Lo yu du cha rongwa nga to xieje tsini siya jorwa. Lo yu du cha rongwa di xieje tsini. Ta xieja di xia ni ko xiengen ge lo chi yu diri. Ta ko xiengen ge lo chi yu diri. Je du ma to be je ta je xieja yi chinje dara ko xiengen ge lo je du ma to be namba tamje chenpi xie jun den chi ina ni ta cha tangwa. Ngone thanle ki peke xieja jikja ma lu ba ani peke je kari ine ngosum du chen toba tabu chigi chen pa chi yung ke je yuwa ti chen tuku yuwa ti chen ya ki tike ki yu tike talai xieja tiki yuwa nganzo ki ine maa chigi ta shira xengi yuwa ma du chigi ta chigi kunzo ki chu sadung la sok pe tinte du ma to xengi yuwa te xieba te yang karita xi yu ti yu ti xia ni xieja ti lo ti xia kore xieba chingeng ki traba ti lo ti xia kore 제가 인자 다 통다 도도 통세야 디 시작을 하기 송도한데 통세야 디 가르세나 당 아이디라 손다 돈이 히브라 차오시 담반이 초지 자데 되니까 시드노 다통 담바세야 디 해주직이야 통디 시작을 해 담반이 시작 탐지에 날이 초, 당나도 초를 잡이나 동반이 있다 볼때 시자 탐지기 날 초리 되어래. 가서 가자 타다봐 제백이 깡장기 되라냐 초직 자초이래. 양 녀모로 보지 잡이나 녀모비 좀 탐지에 제백이 꼭대 꼭받담 봤으니까 녀모비 좀 탐지 다디네 양 꼭발에 나도 야래 꼭발에 근데 산지 펑베지 좀 꼭받담지 있는 녀모비 좀 탐지에 제백 가 제방함 깍비 깍자 꼭받담부터 얘기요. 초디 장내 인데요. 양한테 마마 제 통람 남돌람 통람라부 터비게 내가블이나 양한테 반자 강야로만 저 빵배 꼭받이 톱두요래. 전돌에 초세네 저기 전돌에 초세기리 맨저 다도 얘기할 땅에 아디 별다 당반이 초지 자데스 세상 다디 동양이 당반이야 인베 다 진짜 내가 시든도 붙이 시든스도 가르쳐 시든스도 다 동양이 아니 비게 당반이야 인베 그니 시든인도 말 가르쳐다 동 당바가 왔네 세요 전 직송도 와다디 왔어
어디 쉰디구나.
라이.
So we are in the middle of page 220. So a question is asked, what is the meaning of does not exist ultimately? Maybe now we're getting somewhere, right? It says, when you talk about something doesn't exist ultimately, what do you mean by that? So this brings us back to understand the meaning of Dön Tambar. I think maybe in English we end up using two words because they're trying to explain the term in Tibetan. So I guess we have to say ultimate object, right, to capture the whole Tibetan term. Okay, Dön Tambar. Okay. And so the Tibetan term Dön, which literally means meaning, actually, in this particular case has been translated as focus of the object. Okay. So the word how should I say? The word Dön, or the meaning, as in the Tibetan term Dön Tamba, it refers to the object of the focus. Okay? And the Tamba, which I translate as ultimate now, right? It really refers to that which is supreme. It's the best. That which is the best or the supreme. So that's the meaning of the term Dön Tamba, or ultimate object. Okay? And so as Khensur Rinpoche explains, that so the object is defined as something that is knowable. Okay? That we define that something is an object when it becomes a focus. I should say, when there is a knower, or when there is a subjective perception, right? Then we can say, well, that is an object of such and such perception, isn't it? So object is something that knowable thing, and then there's a knower, the subjective mind or the perception. Okay? So in terms of like subjective perceptions, of course, the best is what we call the omniscient mind or the omniscient wisdom, right? That knows everything that exists, non-conceptually. Okay? And then there are the other levels of perception or knowledge, if you will. For example, when we talk about in the structure of the paths, right? Let's say when you're on the path of seeing darshan mark, right? And you realize that path by way of getting rid of some delusions and some things to be abandoned. Okay, so what you have achieved is this state of mind, which we call gokten. It can be considered as true cessation, because having abandoned certain defilements or something, you have achieved this state of abandonment, some state of purity of mind, which constitutes the state of abandonment, and that is also a supreme, isn't it? So we can think of supreme in terms of supreme object could be, for example, Khensur used the example of emptiness. Among all the objects, we can say emptiness or shunyata is the supreme object. Why? Because by focusing on it, we're able to purify our mind of the defilements, isn't it? So therefore, it is a supreme, object, if you will. So also we can say that, let me see, so where are we right now? So that which is object and that which is supreme, right, both, that is called Dön Tamba, ultimate object. That which is both, right? I think the translation here is, it says, where are we here? Okay. Okay, I'll read the whole sentence here. Here, object Dön means something knowable, and highest or Tamba, which is supreme, means supreme, and ultimate is a common locus of both. So this another way of saying that is, when we talk about ultimate object, what we're saying is, it has to be an object and it has to be supreme. That which is an object, that which is a supreme, is basically called ultimate object, or Dön Tamba in Tibetan. Okay? So in which case it could refer to emptiness. Emptiness is an object. Emptiness is supreme, right? Emptiness is the best of the object, if you will. So emptiness can be referred to as ultimate object. Okay.
Oh yeah. 다 동당바 강의 해야 되게 티와 달 해준다고 마송당라고 직전인데 진대지 송송아.
So that's one way of understanding it. Okay. Now there are other ways to understand 동당바.
다 양나스기 알다. 양나 동당바 해야 돼 티와 딜래라 당다 해야 돼. 대해기 양만 대해기 송거여서래. 양나 담반 매도 이시 인라 대 유남 대 동남니 유인배나 동담바모 되게 속들하고 책잡도가 양나 담바디 가봐 시작인 인사나 담바대 동담바 파베냐샤 이시 신이더라 담바시야기 담베자디 동담바 파베냐샤 이시더라 디시기 동담바시기 동색이 이시라봐 담바시니데 디 파바 동담바 파베냐샤 이시 디 니베게 유안 디 동인베전다 유인베 son다 아니 동담바 뭐 시야 시바 직자의 인세 단 도르트는 동담바티 파베냐샤 이샤니 디 니베 동 디 유인베 다 동인잡지 샤그러다 동관이 잡을때 샤도이나 디 유인베나 담바티니 시기 인세 직송도가 어때리
So another way of understanding or interpreting the term Dön Tamba, ultimate object, is the Tamba, ultimate, it refers to subjective perception of a particular kind, which refers to the transcendental wisdom in the state of meditative equipoise. Arya's transcendental wisdom absorbed in this meditative state. So that wisdom, non-conceptual wisdom, is called ultimate or Tamba. And the turn or the meaning of the object, it refers to its object, which is emptiness, isn't it? Arya or transcendental beings in the state of meditative equipoise non-conceptually engage in the object or with the object, and there that wisdom, non-conceptual wisdom, is the ultimate, okay, Tamba, and what that wisdom sees is the turn, meaning or the focus or the object. Okay, so that's another way of understanding the term turn Tamba or ultimate object. Yeah. Now in English it doesn't seem to work, but but yeah.
Oh yeah. Shedu chik che ra la. Yang shedu chik le song yu sari ta. Shedu chik che na tanda kong de shebe de chodun de chire ya da. Yang na tong tamba ngosum to tok be ani pige che me do yi xie tang. Tong tamba ti ni de ta ji kong de tang bo xue be dan xin ge tong tamba de dong yi xia, tong de dong yi xia ne de yong yi ngosum to tok be yi xie de ri xie. 알아봐. 동이 ngosum to be tong tamba 동이 ngosum to be xie tang xie. Da di de jesu jesu tumbe xerabla tong tamba xie cha de ya na na 동이 ngosum to be xie de la tong tamba jin ji xia ge de. Ya xie du jiao xie ba ji jia be na tong tamba 동이 ngosum to yo mari de yin ya kuran gi jesu tumbe 투중기 시랍 튼도게 똥바니 가서다 투중기 시랍다 삼중기 시랍 튼도 똥바니 무슨다 또디와 말이스 무슨다 또디와 말이티 얘네 통 담방 무슨도 동게 디 지수 tum바르지 차기 와리스 지수 tum바르지 차기 예자 다 단지 투중 삼중 딘데기 비게지 제바 제듭기 담바 두부 안도 통 담바 좀 제바 제듭기 딘데기 지수 tum베 유인베 시랍 튼도 유인베나 야 동탐바 인데지기 시바자 뒤지 요 송거여자래.
So in that the middle paragraph on page 220, it provides us maybe three different ways of understanding ultimate object or Ten Tamba in Tibetan. Okay. Now the last one is the second one we just talked about is that the Tamba or the ultimate refers to transcendental beings, non-conceptual wisdom in the state of meditative equipoise, and Ten or the meaning of the object refers to emptiness. Okay. Now another way of understanding Ten Tamba, ultimate object, is that it doesn't necessarily have to be non-conceptual direct insight into ultimate reality. For example, when we engage in study and contemplation on emptiness, right, we develop certain knowledge and understanding of what emptiness is through hearing, through contemplation, right? So those wisdoms, because they are what we call concordant with the Arya's non-conceptual wisdom, they are similar to, or this will lead us to there. So these knowledge of the wisdoms could also be referred to as ultimate, and then their objects, the emptiness is the object or the meaning. Okay? So there are different ways of understanding the meaning of the term Ten Tamba, which in English we translate as ultimate object. A little bit problem here, but
다 내가 시작인다. 내가 시작이 되니까 어디봐 등대가 시작이다. 안서 어디네 마 가발리서 단다. 제수 tumbe 시랍 투성 삼중기 시랍길래야 양한테 제수 tum바다. 이거 통통방 무슨도 봤다. 제수 tumbe 양제 야가로르지 야 녀와 통담도 리요. 녀와 통통나 되니까 통통방 무슨도 또 시랍 오래인들 봐. 근데 말리데 정도에 통통바시 시작이 인시야지. 다들 좀 먹을지라 봐. 다가 시작이
So there are three different ways to understand Ten Tamba or ultimate object. And so number one is that the turn or the meaning refers to the object, and Dhamma or the ultimate, it simply means that which is supreme. Okay, it's the best. The second understanding of that is the ultimate refers to Arya's non-conceptual wisdom in meditative equipoise, and the turn or the meaning of the object refers to its focus, which is the emptiness. The third way to understand that is that people who have studied, for example, emptiness very intensely and who have contemplated this, they might have reached certain level. They have certain experiences, understanding of emptiness through listening to teaching, through contemplation. So those knowledge of the wisdoms are somewhat comparable to the Arya's non-conceptual wisdom, and those could be considered as ultimate or Dhamma, and then the object is their focus. Okay, so and Khensur said we will stop there, and we let you ask questions or make observations, clarifications today there. Okay, so there's the mic over there. Yeah.
So basically, in response to the question, the question here in the last paragraph was raised, what is the meaning of does not exist ultimately?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so, he doesn't seem to answer yet.
Okay.
But is it the case that for both the Svatantrika and Prasangika, the answer would be what does not exist ultimately is what does not exist for the non-conceptual sublime wisdom?
What does not exist?
What does not exist ultimately is the same as what does not exist for the non-conceptual sublime wisdom. For example, conventional phenomena.
Oh, okay.
It's the same thing, and this is something that both Prasangika and Svatantrika would agree on.
Okay. Quran condition de dirisha ta tanda kasoro tön tambar message yorwa.
Long.
Digi kodön de te yorwa.
Lari.
Ina da di land na la Quran samba ta tön tambar meju de kar rese ge land de sever shung me so che so sarwa. Tön tambar yo mare se yorwa. Meju tön tambar message de sever ske shung mo so sta cha da tön tambar yo mare se ge tonda ngoma de dis ge yorwa sa da kanje 파베 냠샤 이시기 ngolarowa. Rawa. A meba di tön tambar meba se ta di tanda tenju wada rangju ba nigaru di shigir wesa. Tön tambar message yorwa. Message ka ris go sana 파베 냠샤 이시기 ngola rawa meju yorwa. Me dingen di ani tön tambar message di ta tanda teranigaru di ju ta ka wesa.
어디 베체르도 파베 냠샤 이시기
ngola meba di tön tambar message.
베체 시기요 말이 가르쳐서 따티 링어로 가자 쓰기래 링어로 가자 하시네 투숨 고송기 세랍기 ngor 풍속이 추남 비게지 유브라야 지금 뒤된 게 달라 링어로 가자 하세요 어디 돈 담바 될 자주제 요래 돈 담바 매세야지 지단 돈 담바 유매 저세야게다 될 자주제 요래라 돈 담바를 매세야지 여러분 돈 담바를 매세야지 여러분 그 가르쳐나 다 각자들 매세요 다 각자들 돈 담바를 잡지 여서나 아니 말한들 속속로라 제대로 나와 나힌기 속속로라 제대로 나와 나힌기 지금 요거와지 레디어 대요 말이 숨거다 말한도 뭐네 랑문에 두바 돈 담바를 두바 비게지 철기 여러분 비네 초독도 둘때부터 차르게 알아봐. 초독도 둘때부터 난들 차르게 되어. 대피게 초독도 둘때부터 요 말이 파독배 땅니 독배 따듬기 자지 태버지 리마도 저 탐제 독배 바다니 자지 태제버지 자고를 마도 찍라. 나도기 나왔다도 둘때부터 요 말이 가디 공도바 휴송아 아빠는 송예기 때답 차지는 송예디 차비나 거기 멜로나를 가족이 동바 요버티 메템페리 동바 요아 말이 이내야 가족 동바 요버다 붙지 나한테기지 요리 나한테기 가족 동바 뒤날리 요 말이 이게 나한테 붙지 제대한시 소소고 쇼는 아니 비게지 라셰치 주바함 담바 주바함 돈 담바 주 나한테기지 요리 나한테 마주버티 돈 담바 메버티리스 텔레 셰투니 요리 녀두 근데 돈 담바 유미 쩨베 대치지 양돈 담바 세데 단다 콘도 휴바 나신 돈지 쩨면 돈 담바디야 파베냠 자이힐이 샤니 티 유인당 돈 담바세니 해주지 어레스 티 메주도 말레스 유주드레스
다 단다 켄스르 그 자신나에 다 텐주 벌다 다다 되게 여러 바페데 저 담제 랑기 가서 랑wen 좀 나고다도 요말 세저로 다 가서디 랑주베치디 나고다도 요르슬라 그러다
다 랑주베잖아 랑기 틴이 줘밤 아니 비게지
랑wen
줘밤 비게지 랑기 자 틴데티 요아리스 요아리 그니 뭐데 각kel 쳬버 타라 총송알라
그래서 다 가서디 랑주 발라야 다 대한 담버 메슬도 갈라 나고다도 요르슬로 다 메주데 가르메라고다
랑주발 돈 담버 메세야데 텐주와데 찍바리 그니 가제네 찍바리 얘네야 텐주와다 윤두발 코랑기 메세야데 랑주부 코랑 텐주와다 인도 랑주비 메세야데 유디어 코랑 랑 텐주도 봐 유디어봐 텐주 코랑 걸 유디게 요아리데 코랑게 랑주부 코랑게 돈 담버 메세니 히바티 자게 요아리스 그니 가자네 카카카가 자겠다
그래서 뭔가 랑주비 단다 즉 세버쳐서 가장 문제 제다 단다 텐주보다 랑주비니까 카가차도요 와 가장 문제 제다인데 랑주보다 텐주니 카가차도요 와 다 랑주병원에 대비나 최남제 안절이야 랑원에 나오는 신고 요르스 거다 와 다지도 된다 말 메시지도 갈 콘서 된다 말 마주보데 가르샤고 거다
그래서 돈 담바를 마주세요 각자 코란도 룩
코란도 좀 각자 있다
코란도 되게 말해 지단에 애니피게 가족이 비게 돈 담바를 쓰도 봐 수직라 뜨바 매봐 란주베 가르타는 초단지 뚜두브리 켈랭겨 봐 뚜두브리야 수 참제 뜨바 매버지 레 송기 용기이나 안테 돈 담바를 좀 두고요 레스
let me see Khensur says that I think that the term is, even in the Tibetan, is very technical. The only difference is a particle ra somewhere. There's a turn tampar and then this turn tampar, right? That's the whole debate. It goes forever in my footnote first in the monastery, okay? So which is very hard to render it in English. But when we refer, okay, maybe this is the way to clarify it. When we use the term, ultimate in the sense of ultimate reality, okay, meaning. So that ultimate exists, okay? And the way to understand that is, say, from the perspective of the Arya's non-conceptual wisdom in the state of meditative equipoise, okay? Ultimate truth exists what? Because that is the only object that exists for that wisdom in the meditative equipoise, isn't it? So the ultimate is defined from that point of view. So that ultimate exists. Now we have another ultimate, we say it doesn't exist. That's the complicating factor, right? Things don't exist ultimately. What really that means is that, as Khensur just explained, it really we have to think in terms of logic, not so much that wisdom. Okay, so that is, we have to, as we often talk about this, how do things appear to exist to our mind, perception? Okay, they exist as if they are out there, right, existing independently, right, in and of themselves. That's how things appear to exist for our mind, isn't it? Okay, so now we ask the question: do they exist the way they appear to us? Okay, so the ultimate, one way to understand ultimate is the way things appear to us. That is the ultimate. Now things don't exist in that mode, isn't it? So therefore we say things don't exist ultimately. So the use of the term ultimate, which is very confusing, even in Tibetan, the term Dhamma, it has to be understood in those two different ways. One meaning that in terms of ultimate as in ultimate reality or ultimate truth, which exists, we can't deny that. Okay? But one ultimate in the sense of which does not exist, which is the way things appear to us. Yeah, so that's all the best I could do.
Okay, thank you. So the Svatantrikas say that nothing exists ultimately, except the ultimate reality, which also does not exist ultimately, right?
Right. We'll say it one more time.
The Svatantrikas and Prasangika agree.
You mean Svatantrika Madhyamikas or Sautantrikas?
Svatantrikas.
The next to the Vibhasikas, right?
No, Svatantrika.
Svatantrika
Madhyamikas, yeah.
You mean the other sub-school?
Yeah.
The other sub-school?
Yeah, the other sub-school,
yes,
Svatantrika.
yes. Okay.
So they both agree that nothing exists ultimately. And yet the Svatantrikas say that phenomena exist intrinsically.
That's right. That's right. Yes. That Nigalo, Ranguba, the Tenjuba Nigalo, Chetam Jeton, Tambar Modus Lava, in a Ranguba, Chetam Rango in the Drupes Lagorwasa. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Don't Tambar Rango Carta Ranguba to the any PH Rangi Mone Matubuyana, any Yuba Rabuchita, Tanya Sai. 남자 안 때니 태그 말이 라는 비게 듣도 아래 예신 주야 하고 요래 다든다 뜻이 연단으로 때 또로 때 강자 유매세 통 탐바르 돼야지 부백이 룩솔이야 부백이 될 라지 유매기 제발 기다 요래 통 탐바르 돼야기 돼요 말이 단다 미주기 통 탐바르 야통 탐바 빠르 맞아 통 탐바서는 밥에냐자 이게 유지 집에 똥반이 될라야 통 탐바신 단다 해만 타도게 딘데기 예바라 요래 간지 라다 유멜레 쳬바라 히다요 아레스
디스카능 메도 켄즈르메다 단다 랑교베 로르야 셔담제 랑고는 요르 세저로바 요제 디직소나 안테 세브착메로 셔담제 랑고는 요르 세저로바 상고다 나오디
랑게 뭔지 메비나 아니 피에지 탄이도 자제로 때 태기민도 바죠 랑기 뭐니 팀부지 요고요 아래 발로 따바이 팀부지 요고요 아래 니조 저기 토니 자제 태고를 마도 저기라 똑배 짱짱 다 샤비나 라르시 따게네 아니 피게 라티 시기 자와 시기레베 광이 뭐에 피게지 팀부지 고아래 란지베기 티시에기었다 로 옹기 작바 당 그게 그 유기 뭐네 팀부지 니조 고고요 아래 마도 저기 아니 로 단장 그게 똑배 옹기 샤바 짱짱지 샤비나 게티 티 샤와치 누구 민도와 라르셀타는 세기 샤와치 누구 민도와 세기 비게 지 샤와치 누기 랑게 뭐니 줍대버지 그거 알아야 젠티 상당 유사라와
No, so okay, so this might help us a little bit more. So as I pointed out in my footnote, now Khensur said that, so I can comfortably say it again. He said, even in the Tibetan, you can sound this both. One will say that phenomena do not exist ultimately. In Tibetan, it means tön tam par. There is a particle ra, par, like if I just extend it, well, we never speak Tibetan like that, but just to make it, yeah. And then this tön tam pa without the ra sound, which is something that exists, okay. And so that's the kind of difference they're trying to explain in the literature. So you're right that both Prasangikas and Sevatantrika Madhyamikas say that nothing exists ultimately, but Sevatantrika Madhyamikas says things exist from their own side, okay? And then, so their philosophical standpoint is, they said that, something has to exist from its side and something is imputed. It's the combo, okay? He said, you just can't say that everything is merely imputed, right? He said, well, in which case, then they think that, if we call a copper a gold, then it should be gold. Because basically they said, whatever we impute, it should be what it is. But that's not how things work. They said, yes, there is something existing from its side, then there's something that's labeled onto that. So through the combination of that, that's how things exist. So therefore, they assert that things exist intrinsically from their side as well. Yeah. Whereas Prasangikas say, no, nothing exists in that way. Right? That's the big debate. Okay. Yeah.
So one final question, if I may.
Yeah.
Does that mean that implies that, according to the Svatantrikas, things are unknowable in and of themselves, because everything that we perceive, everything that we know, is a combination. So it's not the truth. Right. There is some kind of a superimposition implied. So that means they are not knowable in and of themselves, according to Svatantrikas. They are not knowable in and of themselves.
Oh, no.
They exist intrinsically. There is something out there.
Right.
But whatever we see is it's not the truth.
I understood what you say, yeah. Okay. But I don't think they would say that. I'll check with them. Yeah. I'll check with them, yeah. That means, Alakorang this got, Rangyubegirwa, that should the join Nerva, Pinechik to Pale chick out the name by Nerva, and should the Karsor and Dirwa. I joined the Delia, that Eugene, the change sugar is that should the so the shame so much. The Yumayomar was kind of Eugene Tenko Hago. You carry Venus, you could have thought to a Yomaro, Eugene talk or was the killing Marisoda, Ranguberg. That you Ranguberg sent a Rangun Yorosla, when using the Rangun to do the Roa. The Rangun to do and you did so thought to progress.
So
yu correct so to pena ta ka so nga zo lu du shung de ye ke zo mi ka so da to ba la de ko yu jin ji le jan ya ga men ro ba yu jin ko rang ne drup de yu na yu jin correct to to ko ma ba ka sa na ko la ya di ka na da to ba ta ba cha jo ro ba so da ko ten de cha de ko ro ko to to ko men do so this
yu jin correct to ba ya ri yu jin correct to ga yu jin rang ju be ki de yang to ba ji mang gu xia ya yo ri yu jin correct dong ge ten ju wa sa na yang di 갈솔다 다 갈솔 랑게 또 봤다 요래디 이네 다 랑은 주세야 다니 지금 말아 와다 랑을 다티 또 마도 깨져 개시기요 말이 또 마도 깨지 시기요 말 코라 유문이 파전이 저 템포지 속도도 둘 때기도 있어요 다 둘때기 다티 비게 또 봤다 마도 봤다 나 기르기 요 들어와 유 코라 원에 그 템포적이 그 자시에도 마송지 템포지에도 로 파에 다 저기 니도 저기 이 피게지 리데기 요르마도 저기 아니 근데기 니도 매버달라 돈 담바를 매버다네 이 갈자트스기 있어요다.
So basically, I mean, what you just pointed out, that's where the person gigas find is very paradoxical in the standpoint of the seventh and the Kamadimigans. You know, when you accept that there is a part which is imputed, but at the same time you said it could stand on its own. So it is what we call self-contradictory in many ways, you know. But the Seventh-day Madhyamikans don't go to the extent of saying what you just said, you know, that the things would know on their own, things like that. So what was it? Okay, you have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, kind of jumping on that, if we go into the term by way of its own character, I think that kind of clarifies it. So let's take an example. You have a dog and you have a cat.
Yes.
How do you know this is a dog, this is a cat? I think the Svatandra, and maybe Rinpoche can correct, are they saying that I know this is a dog because it has certain characteristics that from its own side, it has nothing to do with me imputing those characteristics. Okay. That dog has certain characteristics that has him be a dog from his own side. And that this other thing we call a cat because of a certain characteristics coming from its own side, not coming from me. Is that what they're saying?
Okay, I can check with him. Yeah. Kurang this go. That bena dirawa rangyubagi tanda dirawa rangi sinyi druba digo rowa. Tanda rangi sinyi druba second de dinde jor samtana digo yana menasa de sungrang bena chiji de shimiji yoba chasha rowa. La. Chiji de shimiji. Chi de shimi. Chi de shimi yudo kala bena rangyubagi na chi de shimi ni de kurang ngwe ne chi gi da ka so sinyi de ma so ne kejo ro de shimi kejo jo rowa. Yu kurang ngwe rowa. Dinde je yue sang cha di chi ba ngo sing go di shimi ba ngo sing go rowa so rowa. To ba so sha jo ma rowa ko chi kurang ngwe ne chi gi ka shi ga jo rowa. But this go rowa sa da rang ngwe yue se.
This gi or degree. This gi on degree.
Yeah, that is okay. Yes.
Pige che kharto gorta. Chi kore ngone pige ropte ba jan chi 샤네 디기 민두스기요. 야랑이베. 로이 파지 chi shin 다니 치기 비게지 통지 샤르고 겨러 간도라. 매 있는 거 마션 버지글라. 샤르토기 미디와. 마션 선은 그 민디 제 된데 하고 선은 얘네 비게지 다시세야지 미지요이나 그 통다데 미디 관계 하고 선은 아니 뭔가 뭐네 그 통인도 봐라. 다 다시리 송삼야게 가서 팔로지 따버지기. 니도 그것도 진짜스기였다.
Yeah, I think we could use that example of how, say, you know, a dog, you know, from its own side comes with certain characteristics that differentiate it from cats looking like, or the cats from the dogs, you know. But then that's not enough. But based upon those characteristics, we humans still have to say dog, cat, you know. So that's what that is, a combination of something. There's something from their side, right, which differentiate themselves from each other, but that is not adequate enough. At the end, when we say this is dog, this is cat in our mental image, but that comes through our imputation, right? So that's what it, yeah. Okay, I think we have enough brain exercise today. We'll stop there, and I have some prayer requests to make. Today, Khensur this 기실 소발아요 봐. Wisconsin 세르치 장박함세. 기실아 샤도와. 그래서 생기로 봐. 안디 전에 디기 더 기실아 동당에 디 가서 가서 상주 면람 시티나로나 쉬지. 제 안디네 기루지 오션 바치도 제넷 왓슨 생의 모터 담니 통도와. 모레 쉬. 디 통만 점전나로나서. So I have a prayer request from Lily. It's her friend Janet Watson. Unfortunately, got killed by getting run over by truck. So And then also maybe some of you already know very venerable Geshe Lhundrup Soba at the Deer Park, Wisconsin. Geshe-la, of course, lived a very successful and full life. At the age of 92, he passed away, I think last Thursday. Yeah. And if I remember it well, which I usually don't now, maybe I'm aging, that our Geshe-la and he were, I think, set for the same Geshe examinations and, become top-notch, both Geshe-la Rinpoche. Yeah. And of course, Geshe-la led a very successful life, became a monk at age 7 or 8 or something, and then lived until 92. So that's very rare in itself. And his life story. He's like a pioneer of Tibetan Buddhist studies in America. So many of the top, professors who are teaching now, like Jose Cabazon at the UC Santa Barbara, and all of them studied with Geshe-la before. So I just want to request you to kind of pray for his quick return, And I heard that he was in the clear light state. And so I requested our monks to do a Samantha Bhattara prayer, the King of Prayers. And while we do that, you can recite Om Mani Padme Hum for Janet Watson and Geshe Sopa and others. Okay. Omarambaza
Na
na
de
de zende jeje
Ra
jera
wa
vese
za
ye
ja ta
talo
lo da mo
demo memba rase
Ka
kada
den jo
tenje
chong
shunlo
lo do ba
doba ye
Ya
manje
jo ba ba ma wa te do so
so jamba nyame
Dan
denjo
za zan za
zan
ja
je ludo tome penjo juden sha debam
Dan
kara
ya
yabje
te song
songo
ba be
tende gele sobe bedo jo chanjo nyingbo shebe shu Nanda Sudin Sonye, Ledamde, Namjan Suje, Nyamdo Shebe, Pande Lame Shala, Swavade, Shudu Jebe, Kera, Nyamda Lugun, Dove, Simjeje, Sawade, Yen, Nenjo, Laje, Rosan Jande, Bebe, Pedo Jo, Nyingma Maye, Randa, Chidembe, Yiwe, Meshe, Dongwa, Dikon La, Yeze, Beze, Kudo, Yangde, He who has the intuitive wisdom that disperses the clouds to obscuration, like the sun shedding a glorious light that is utterly pure. He who understands all meanings whatsoever of perfect realization, from whose heart emerges the lotus holding the books of those who live in samsara are the prisoners of ignorance, afflicted by the darkness of suffering. You wake people from the slave of conflicting emotions, freeing one from the iron shackles of karma, dispelling the darkness of ignorance. Thus you wield the sword which cuts down the shoots of suffering, primordially pure, having reached the 10 Bodhisattva level, the perfect body of highest quality, the foremost son of the Buddhas, adorned with 112 ornaments, major and minor physical perfections of a Buddha. I bow down to you, Manjushri. Please dispel the darkness of my mind. Om Arabhazanadi. I beseech you with the loving kindness of your omniscient light rays to completely dispel the dark ignorance of my mind, thus giving me the intellectual courage and intelligence to understand the teachings of the Buddha, their illustrating treatises and commentaries. O peerless savior and supreme teacher Shuddhodana's son, or the 17 masters and adepts, Nagarjuna and the Sangha and so on, O Dipankar as well as Sovereign Father Tsongkhapa, gloriously appeared here today to grant auspiciousness. On the great path leading to the heart of enlightenment, you have traversed by means of the perfect threefold discipline, and have enhanced higher the realizations of the enlightened quality. O glorious Guru, we offer our supplications at your feet. Pray written gloriously to propagate the teaching of Lobsang, by tying well the sash of monastic disciplinary precept, and generating the altruistic intention to free all beings, engage in the tantric yogas of the 2 stages. Think of the unbearable pain of the sentient beings, who are enveloped in the forces of 5 degenerations, and open wide the lotus grove of the Buddha's teaching. May your reincarnation appear soon as a source of merit for us.
Mandela ga ne ya da ya me